Hi there, we're back together learning Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin Perek Tes Mishnah Beis. This Mishnah focuses on a key element in being mechayev somebody for murder, and that is kavana, intent. We see in this week's parsha the connection to Ari Miklot. Ari Miklot is a place of refuge for someone who killed Bishagoga. That is a very important proof that we cannot possibly give someone capital punishment where we know, where we see, where we observe that he had no intent, that he had no kavanah to kill person A. Says the Mishnah, if someone intended to kill an animal but accidentally killed a person instead, for example, an animal and a person were standing next to each other, and someone threw a rock with the intent to kill the animal, but he missed the animal and killed the person instead, then the halacha is potur. If he intended to kill an idolater, but accidentally killed a Jew instead, here the halacha is important to know that Fashtetzach, a Jew, is prohibited, is absolutely also for him to kill an idolater, and he's guilty of murder for doing so. Nevertheless, the Beis Din Shalmata, the human court, may not execute him, but rather he will be punished by heaven. He will get misa b'dei shamayim. So passes the Rambam in Hilchos Hotzeach Perek Beis Alocha Yud Aleph. Third case in the Mishnah, Lenefolim v'orages ben kayama. He intended to kill a baby that we know will not live, but accidentally killed one that will live instead. What does that mean? Niskaven lenefolim v'orages ben kayama. The baby was born prematurely, or a baby has a major defect in one of their vital organs where we know a priori will not be able to survive, will not be able to live. So although Fashtetzach, again, it's also to take the life of such a baby, but if one does so, he is exempt from capital punishment. He's exempt from the death penalty. The next case is, so in all of these cases, the Mishnah says, potur. Potur when he's niskaven la'arges habeim v'arges ha'adam. Potur when he's niskaven lo'yivut kachov v'arges Yisrael. Potur when he's niskaven l'nefolim, in Neifel, in Yochid, v'arges ben kayam. In all of these is potur. Zog the Mishnah weiter. In the following instance, a person intended to hit someone with a blow that will not kill him, but he accidentally delivered a blow that did kill him. Niskaven la'koisal moisnov. If someone intended to hit another person on his hips, v'lo hoya bo kedei la'hamis al moisnov, and this blow that he was intended to give him, to zetz him at his hips, was not strong enough to kill him, and it instead landed on his heart, but it accidentally landed on the victim's chest, and and it was strong enough to kill him on his chest, and he died. Still, in all, the halacha is potur. The murderer is not liable to the death penalty because he did not intend to kill. He did not intend to kill. Let's explain this a little bit better. For example, he threw a rock that was heavy enough to kill the person had it hit his chest, but it was not heavy enough to kill him if it hit him on his hips. For Shtetzach, we know that it's easier to kill someone by hitting his chest, where the heart is located, than by hitting his hip. So he's, however, potur. Why is he potur? Here too, he's not executed. He does not get capital punishment, even if the witnesses warned him, don't hit his hip, because you might miss and hit his heart. So told him witnesses. This warning, however, is an invalid warning because it is based only on a possibility. Earlier, we also learned in the Mishnah that although the person intended to kill, since he would not have been executed for killing his intended victim, he is not executed for accidentally killing his actual victim. Now, we need to understand the big yesod here, that the halacha, the law holds true even where he was warned not to kill the actual victim. For example, an animal and a person were standing near each other, and he was about to throw a stone at the animal in order to kill it. Witnesses told him, "Hey, mister." They warned him that if he throws the stone, he might kill the person instead, for which he would be liable for execution. And he responded, "I'm throwing the stone with the knowledge that if it hits and kills the person, I will be liable to execution." In this case, even if he defies the warning and goes ahead and throws the stone, there is only a possibility that the stone will miss the animal and kill the person instead. A warning based on a possibility is considered in halacha hasoa sofek. That's the point we wanted to get to. It's considered in halacha hasoa sofek, and hasoa sofek is not considered a hasoa. Hasoa sofek is a warning given to a potential killer or potential anybody doing any affair, which is based only on a suffix. You may end up killing him. You may end up hitting him. You may end up injuring him. All of these asros are asros suffix because it's based on the may, on the baby. An asros suffix is invalid. In order to be valid, a warning must be such that if the person about to sin defies the warning, he will certainly commit a capital offense. This is all the Reid in the Meforshim. So therefore, again, in this case here, what happened here? Again, let's review the case. He intended to hit somebody in the hips, and with the makkah that he was going to deliver to the hips was not one that was strong enough to kill him, but instead it ended up on his heart, on his chest. And then it had enough of a blow strong enough to kill him in his chest, and he died. Still in all his potur, because he did not intend to kill. He did not intend to kill. And let's review again. Intent is the key. He's not executed even if the witness warned him, because even if they warned him, it's a sauce suffix. Now let's look at the opposite situation. The Mishnah continues. Someone intended to hit the victim on his chest, and the blow was strong enough to kill him had it landed on his chest. But instead it accidentally landed up on his hips. And it was not strong enough to kill the victim on his hips, but he died anyway. Again, potur. The murderer is not liable to the death penalty, since the actual blow that he ended up striking was not strong enough to kill. And the victim presumably died from some other cause. Again, let's understand a little better that in this situation, although he intended to strike a death blow, he is not liable to execution because he failed to deliver such a blow. He failed to deliver such a blow. So the Mishnah's last two cases teach that someone does not receive the death penalty for murder unless two conditions are met. An important summary. One does not receive the death penalty unless two conditions are met. One, kavona, he intended to kill. And two, the blow he actually delivered was strong enough to kill, because otherwise the victim may have died from some other cause. So explains clearly the Rav. Now let's go weiter. The Mishnah presents a pair of cases similar to the previous pair of cases. Says the Mishnah, "Niskaver lahakas es agodol." Someone intended to hit an adult. V'lo ba kedei lahamis es agodol. And the blow that he was going to deliver was not strong enough to kill an adult person. V'hol chalo ala kotan, and the blow ended up accidentally landing on a child. V'hoya ba kedei lahamis es akotan v'meis. And this blow was strong enough to kill the child, and the child died. For example, an adult and a child were standing next to each other. He threw a rock intending to hit the adult. Didn't hit the adult. It missed the adult and hit the child. Again, potur. The murderer is not liable to the death penalty because he did not intend to kill. And the opposite case? The opposite case is niskavid lahakos is a koton. If someone intended to hit a child, and the blow was strong enough to kill a child, but instead it accidentally landed on an adult instead. And it was not strong enough, it was not forceful enough to kill an adult. But v'meis, the adult died anyway. So again, the murderer is not liable to the death penalty because again, the blow that he struck was not strong enough to cause death. So again, the victim presumably died from a different cause. Now the Mishnah continues with two cases in which the killer is liable to the death penalty, where he will be chayav. How so? If he intended to hit someone on his hips, and the blow was strong enough to kill him on his hips, and certainly strong enough to kill him on his chest. And it accidentally landed on his chest instead. V'meis, and he died. Chayav. He's chayav. He's liable to the death penalty because he intended to kill. And the blow he actually struck was strong enough to kill. We have the two conditions. He intended to kill, and the blow was strong enough to kill. Weiter. Niskaver lahakas es agodol. Similarly, if he intended to hit an adult, and the blow was strong enough to kill the adult, and certainly strong enough to kill a child. And what happened? It accidentally landed on a child instead. V'meis, and the child died. Chayav. Why is he chayav? He's liable to the death penalty because here too, A, he intended to kill, and B, the blow he struck was strong enough to kill. Right? So, in other words, both conditions that we said before were met. Now, although he intended to strike, let's understand that although he intended to strike a death blow to one part of the body, but hit a different part of the body instead, or he intended to kill one person but killed a different one, he's liable to the death penalty for what? Because he intended to commit murder. And he did, in fact, commit murder. So in these cases, the warning is based on a certainty. It's not Asos Suffolk. It's Asos Vadai. Because regardless of where or whom he hits, he will have committed an act of murder that carries the death penalty. Now, this Tanakama that we just learned clearly holds that as long as the murderer intended to kill someone, he is liable to the death penalty, even if he accidentally killed someone else instead. Comes along Rab Shimon and disagrees. Rab Shimon disagrees. Rab Shimon omer, afilu niskaven להרוג זה והורג זה, potur. Even if he intended to kill one person, but accidentally killed another person instead, he is not liable to the death penalty because he did not intend to kill this person that actually was killed. This actual person who was actually killed. Rab Shimon learns this from a pasuk in the Torah that one is not liable to the death penalty for murder unless he killed the person he intended to kill. Rab Shimon, however, agrees that if he hit his intended victim, but the blow landed on a different part of his body than the one he planned to hit, he is liable, since he wanted to kill that person. He wanted to kill that person. That's the key. The intent. The intent was fulfilled. I landed in a different place, but the man was killed because he intended to kill him. Says in the next Mishnah, Mishnah Gimel, the Mishnah states the rule where someone committed a murder, but we do not know who did it. We don't know who did it. We know that there's a person in this group who killed. If a murderer is mixed among other people, we cannot tell them apart. We don't know who's Reuven, who's Shimon, who's Yehuda, who's Gad, who's Naphtali. But they're all together, and one of them is a Rotzeach. Rotzeach shenis'arev ba'acherim. Kulam peturim. All of them, including the murderer, are exempt from the death penalty since we don't know which one he is. For example, two people were standing next to each other, and an arrow was shot by one of them and killed someone. If witnesses could not see who shot the arrow, both of these people are exempt from the death penalty. Even if one of them was known to be a pious person who would never commit murder, we may not convict the other person because the pious person is assumed to be innocent. Now, the previous halacha applies only to people. But if a condemned ox, an ox that was sentenced to be stoned because, for example, he killed a person, if such an ox is mixed among other oxen, all of them have to be stoned in order to fulfill the Torah's obligation of stoning a condemned ox. The rule is that if a forbidden creature becomes mixed with permitted creatures, the forbidden creature is not nullified, is not bottled in the mixture, but remains forbidden. So as a result, none of the creatures may be eaten because it might be forbidden. It might be the one that's also. In our case then, where a condemned ox, which is a forbidden creature, because the Torah forbids having benefits from such an ox. If such a forbidden creature became mixed with other oxen, all of them are forbidden, because once something is forbidden, it no longer belongs to its owner. Because ownership of an object is meaningless without the right to use it. Having lost their right of ownership, the owners of the oxen in the mixture cannot stop them from being stoned. And the court, the Beis Din, may therefore stone all of them in order to fulfill the obligation of stoning a condemned ox. Okay? רוצח שניסור באחרים כולו פטור. רבי יהודה אומר, כהן סין, או רבי יהודה אומר, כהן סין או יצר לכיפה. Back to our רוצח who was נסערב באחרים. Yes. So Rabbi Yehuda says we may bring all of the oxen into a cell, and we're back to the oxen, not to the people. We are able, well, it says Rabbi Yehuda, we're obligated to bring all of these oxen into a cell and leave them there to die, which means they don't have to be stoned. According to Rabbi Yehuda, we do not burden the court with the task of stoning all of the oxen just to be sure that they stone the right one. Rather, the court may simply lock all of these oxen in a room and let them eventually die. So that was our oxen that got mixed up. In the Mishnah's next case, people who were sentenced to one type of death, we learned before about the Arba Mises Beis Din, right? We learned before about the Arba Mises Beis Din, stoning, burning, beheading, and strangling. So people who were sentenced to one type of death penalty became mixed up with people who were sentenced to a different type of death penalty. What are we going to do with that? In all cases where people sentenced to death, who were sentenced to Misa, become mixed up with one another, and it is not known which person is supposed to receive which death penalty. Says the Mishnah, they are all punished with the lightest, with the kala of the Misas to which they were liable. Why? Why is that? Because we may not punish someone who is liable to a light penalty, to a Misa Kala, with a harsher penalty of a Misa Chamura, because it's more that he deserves. However, someone who is liable to a harsh penalty may be punished with a lighter penalty, because the harsh penalty includes all the lighter ones as well. And therefore, when one was sentenced to the harsh penalty, it is as though he were sentenced to the lighter one as well. The gewaltige Svara that Rashi says. So again, kol chayvim misa shenisar v'zeh nidodim b'kala. All cases where different mechuyavim misa were mixed together, so all of them will receive the misa kala. So now the Mishnah cites a dispute about the application of this previous about this halacha that we just learned. Says the Mishnah, "Aniskolin banisrofim." If people were liable, people were mechuyev to stoning, to skila, become mixed with people who were liable to sreifa. Rab Shimon nidodim b'skila shasreifa chamura. Rab Shimon says that all of them are punished with skila because sreifa is the more chamur of the mitzvahs. The Chachamim Oimrim, and the Chachamim say, Nidonim b'sreifa shaskila chamura, but the Chachamim say that all of them are punished with burning All of them receive Sreifa because according to the Chachamim, Skila is the harsher penalty. Skila is the harsher penalty. Before we had in Perek Zayin Mishnah Aleph, the Rab Shimon and the Chachamim argued whether stoning or burning is the Misa Chabura. So here it is. Here it is. Lemaise, why does it make a difference if one is more chamor than the other? Here you see it. Now the Mishnah just said that Rab Shimon considers Sreifa more chamor, harsher than Skila, while the Chachamim hold the opposite. So now each one of these Baalei Machloikes attempts to prove that his position is correct. Amolem Rab Shimon says to the Chachamim, what are you talking about? Ilu, what are you talking about that Skila is more chamor? My shita is that Sreifa is more chamor. How do I know that? He said, Ilu lo hoisa Sreifa chamura lo nitna lebaskoyin shezinsa. If Sreifa was not harsher than Skila, it would not be applied to that very serious case of a Baskoyin Shezinsa. She would not receive Sreifa, the Baskoyin Shezinsa. Rather, she would be punished with Skila, like other Benois Yisrael who committed adultery. So since the Torah states emphatically that a Baskoyin Shezinsa, that a Kohen's daughter, is liable to burning, whereas a non-Kohen's daughter is liable to stoning, we see, Zok Rab Shimon, that Sreifa is the more chamur of the penalties. Amruloi, so the Chachamim said back to Rab Shimon, yeah, you think you have such a strong raya? No, I will show you that the Taka Skila is more chamur. Ilu lohoisa Skila chamura, lo nita lemegadef lo ivid avedazah. If Skila was not the harshest of all of the death penalties, it would not be meted out. It would not be applied to someone who is a megadef or someone who's a ivid avedazah, which are the most serious crimes, which are the most serious averos. Since the Torah applies the penalty of stoning in these cases, we see that Skila is the most chamur of the misais. Now there's another situation where people who are liable to different death penalties become mixed with one another. For example, if people that are liable to beheading become mixed with people liable to strangling. So Rab Shimon and Yosef, Rab Shimon said that all of them are punished with the sword, by beheading, because beheading is a more kal, beheading is a lighter form of execution than strangling. But the Chachamim say that all of them are punished with strangling, because according to the Chachamim, strangling is the lighter penalty. Now again, this dispute whether beheading is harsher than chanika, than strangling or not, we also learned in Perek Zayin Mishnah Aleph. So Rab Shimon learns that strangling is harsher than the laws of a Rab Shimon learns that strangling is harsher. How does he know that strangling is harsher? From the halacha of an iradidachas, where the persuaders are punished with strangling, but the people who were persuaded are punished with beheading. So since the madichim, since the persuaders clearly committed a greater sin, this proves that strangling is harsher than beheading. Whereas according to the Chachamim, this is no proof at all, because in their view, the persuaders are punished with stoning. The Medichim are punished with skila. So the Chachamim derive their opinion that beheading is harsher than strangling from the fact that the Oivda Avodah of an Irani Dachas, who committed one of the most serious sins, are beheaded and not strangled. Okay, we went a little bit longer than usual, but these are Mishnayos with inyonim that need to be explained in detail and clearly, and I hope we did that.